Hey, Kim.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Is it too late in the year to say that already?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, we took a little bit of time off, but now we're back. So ready to give you lots of new, great information for 2022.
Oh my gosh, January just flew by. I don't know about you, but I'm ready. Like, I just hit the ground running. I don't really have any New Year's resolutions, but I have to say I'm really excited about this year. Have a whole bunch of stuff brewing for buyers and for sellers, and excited just to get going with it, and already be out there with a few closings this year. Here we are in February.
Yes, you have. Yep. It's going to be a busy year for sure. So I think my big thing that I just want to keep addressing is, I love working and meeting with the clients and getting things all strategized, but just to get a little bit of balance every week to stay healthy and just, be as sharp as I can for client activity. So that's kind of on my list.
That's a great goal. I think we can all use that. I'm going to write that one down too.
Yep, exactly. So let's get right into it. Like, what on earth has been going on?
Holy cow. We talked all of last year about what a crazy market it is.
Yeah.
And I took some time and really did a deep dive to look back over the whole year, because sometimes when you're in it, it feels like, has it always been this way? Where's the trends going? Because last year we did see some intra-year ups and downs, but It's been steadily a seller's market for a couple of years. So I went back even further and looked back over 5 years. So we're going to talk about last year's stats really quick, and then want your comments as well on those. And then we'll look back actually 5 years. And I think it will help paint a picture of how far we've come, fallen, gone, whatever, like why we're seeing this pressure and such crazy sales activity. I think it'll really help clarify where we're at. So, as most people know, when a home is listed, if it's properly priced, staged, ready to hit the market, it will sell immediately or within a week, because most sellers will wait for an offer review date. So our time on market is a little artificial because we use review dates here. You list it on a Tuesday, offers are due on the following Monday, so it has 6 days on the market.
Right.
So all of that being said, we continue to have listings come on the market and they sell immediately. Listings come on the market and it sells immediately. So it is this constant turnover and cycle of that. And when you look at the graphs a bit, you'll see that the active versus pending inventory levels go right along that. So as you see, the green line is the active listings. As you go to the right column, this is the whole of last year, 2021. The blue line continues to be longer than the green line, so pending. So one of the ways I explain this chart sometimes is the blue line if you're at a grocery store, the blue line is what's at the checkout stand, and the green line is what's active on the shelf. So right now you can tell that, like toilet paper and other things this year, our available homes for sale on the shelf is minimum. So the graph is kind of interesting, right? But then when you look at the actual data and the number of homes, so in January of 2020, we had 488 pending listings. Active listings. In December, we had 64.
Right.
I mean, just let that sink in when we talk about, how low we are in inventory supplies. And January 2020 was a super hot seller's market.
Yeah.
So we went from 488. The high for inventory last year was May, which kind of follows our trends that April, May, June, kind of we see the high levels, right?
Right.
Was 787 homes for sale. And then by December, we had only 64 homes on the market.
Yes. And it feels like you're right, because when we're in the middle of it, we kind of, forget because we're just working a way to get, properties to the market, sell them, get the buyers in the home. So that makes sense, because it explains what's happening now and why January is the craziest January that we've ever seen because of what happened
Yeah,
at the
because
end of
our
last year.
inventory levels are so low. So, where we've had shortages all throughout, the supply chain, houses are no different right now.
Right.
And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way too, because what happens is those sellers who would be downsizers or move-up buyers, and they would sell the home that they're in. The question, we'll talk more about this later, they get stuck. They get stuck in their house because where are they going to buy? Right. So unless they already have a solution of where they're going to buy, they don't want to be out there sell their house and have no place to live. So that's kind of an interesting look back for the year. But let's take even a further step back on this, and let's look and go back all the way to the year 2017, if you can remember.
Ooh.
So a 5-year look back. What you see on the graph is, again, going back to 2017. You can see January 2017 on the far left is where we were with inventory levels. It was less than a month of inventory. So again, super strong seller's market. And it climbed, I barely remember this, it seems, July of 2018 into January 2019, right? We have this little spike of inventory.
Right.
But it's almost a moment in time.
Right.
And then what happens is we quickly come back down, and these levels of inventory continue to drop. At the same time, what's not on this graph, but what was happening is the economy was going strong, interest rates were falling, we have more buyers in the market. So again, it's a supply and demand. We have less supply, more demand. It's not even just the same demand, we have a growing buyer demand for homes.
Right.
And it puts additional pressure.
Yeah, and I remember 2019 for sure, and in 2018, the stock market was doing a lot of adjusting. Mm-hmm. And so I remember, because the market slowed so much that the market shifts suddenly, and you just are shocked. Where, all of a sudden buyers are, not wanting to buy, and homes are sitting a little bit longer. And so that was the phenomenon at that time.
And then by that, I think it was December of 2019, we were back down to previous inventory levels. Right. And we have really been just on the same trajectory ever since. At the same time, we'll show the graph of median home prices. So, at the end of the day, what's the result of all of this? Well, homes are more expensive.
Right.
They continue to grow in value. This is just a sample of median home price. So for any neighborhood, it's different. But that's most of
King County.
Followed this trend. So just the lack of inventory, the continued strong buyer demand. Anyone who owns a home, this is where we talk about your growing wealth.
Yes. And we have a lot of new buyers, first-time buyers who are actually can be in that bracket, the millennial buyer and the tech buyers. And a lot of people have moved here from other places.
Correct. Yeah, we continue to see the job growth. We have more buyers into the market. So all things are looking great if you're a seller. And for buyers, we just have to get really creative with our buyers. So we'll talk again more about that. So I think I just have one more graph to just kind of, again, go through. It just shows the actual number of homes for sale over this same 5-year period. So in the full year of 2017, so when we add up all the months, the 12 months, we had over 10,000 homes listed for sale. In 2021, we had less than 5,000. So again, half the number of available inventory. And as you just mentioned, more buyer demand. So it's, it just shows a picture. We're down 70% in inventory levels from 2020 into 21. And that's, just paints this picture again. There are always some, seasonal adjustments, and some months have more inventory than the other, but right now we just can't keep up with that buyer demand. And for the foreseeable future, there's no real indication that prices are coming down. So for any buyers out there, as hard as it is right now, I don't predict that it's going to get any easier, and prices will just keep going up. So unless someone's a lottery winner now's a great time to be getting in the market.
Yeah. Well, and I think, we get most of our gains in the beginning of the year. And then, like the people that are writing over and over, and increasing that appreciation, then it still appreciates the rest of the year. But I think just at not quite the pace.
Correct.
Because I know when I've tracked the numbers over the years, like this year, we're seeing, people are writing homes for 25 to 30% over list price, or even more.
40.
Or 40. But on average, 25 to 30, which is a lot. It used to be, like middle to end of last year, we'd say, add 10 to 20%, to the list price to compete. And so anyway, it kind of is that ebb and flow of the...
Yes. And so, it's just really important if you're out there buying to be ready and to be working with a professional who can help you through those steps.
Right.
So when the house presents itself, that you're ready for the right opportunity, because all of these inventory levels will shift. And it's not like we get advance warning. There's no insider real estate forum saying, I'm ready to list 10 more houses, right?
Right.
But it will shift, and it's only in your rearview mirror that you've realized what has happened.
Right.
And then as soon as you realize it's happened, we're right into another trend.
Yeah. So maybe I'll talk about what it takes to be a buyer.
Okay.
Since we're hot on that.
Let's do that.
So what does it take to be a buyer in today's market in 2022? It is wild and woolly. And that is why I have the gear on, the wild and woolly look. So the rules have changed even a tiny little bit, because we are coming up with new ways to try to be competitive. And so for a buyer in today's market, we want to be pre-approved with a super powerful lender, not an online lender, or sometimes not even a large bank who just can't perform in our market. Pre-approved and pre-underwritten. And as of 2022, we do have many different lending options that help buyers with even, trying to figure out covering part of the appraisal gap. And appraisal gap is just that difference. If a home doesn't appraise, a buyer is responsible for that gap. The other thing is just to understand where you are looking in the market and what the prices are doing in that area. So, for example, if you're looking for vintage houses in Seattle, that market, is competitive in one way. If you're looking on the east side, for maybe a larger 4+ bedroom home, those prices are competitive in an even different manner. So it's good to focus in, on the area that you're looking, and, work with a powerful real estate broker who is very knowledgeable, full-time, and understands what it takes to win in this market. And as for winning, part of that is going to be just the education. It takes a lot of downloading to understand what needs to be done in order to write a winning offer. I think that's really powerful in this market.
Yeah. And so you mentioned a lot of the work ahead of time that they need to do, and then the second step is, okay, now you have the baseline that you're approved, you're underwritten, you have strong financials, and now you need to have the discussion about what it's going to take to win, which in a lot of cases is evaluating the risk and reward for waiving contingencies.
Right. And that's kind of where it is at, right? Is most selling agents and sellers want to see no contingencies. And so that includes waiving inspection. They don't even want a financing contingency in there. They really want to see the cleanest, most sparkling deal ever. And then a new strategy that came out probably within the last 12 to 18 months is earnest money has become kind of a weapon. And so they're seeing it as releasing earnest money to the seller at upfront. It still is credited towards your transaction, but I've seen earnest money amounts from everything from $50,000 to $200,000 and more. Yes. So that's a whole different discussion in itself. But anyway, those are strategies that, fit in. And so like Beth said, it really is just about calculating what the risk is and understanding so that you're able to feel comfortable and sleep at night when you submit your offer.
Correct.
And
and that's the power of knowing the market, working with that agent who can help you evaluate. Because I have clients that can waive everything and they have a very high risk tolerance, right? They maybe have deeper bank accounts, et cetera. And I have other clients that, as much as they desire to waive everything, they can work on repairs or, buy a house that has repairs. But the appraisal gap, for example, they have a limit to their bank account, right? And in this market where homes are selling for 50, 100, 200,000 over asking, you do have to have a real discussion about what's the likelihood that they may have to bring significant amounts of money to the table, and wanting to risk that and the ability to risk it may be different.
Right.
Because if that buyer was unable to close, they could lose their earnest money, which means they couldn't go and offer on another house.
Right.
So we have a couple of exciting things coming in the new year. Hopefully we'll learn more about in the next month or two that maybe will help, some lending tools that maybe will help, but we'll talk more about that in down the road.
Down the road. And then there was a house that I was going to use as an example because it's always fun to talk about what is really happening in the market.
Yes.
And so this home in Broadview area was super darling, very
cute.
Sweet. I mean, just, very cute remodeling inside, great neighborhood. And so the competition was pretty fierce, and we did finish in the top 3, and we waived everything. So it really came down to just numbers in the end. And again, we had to prove that we had enough to cover an appraisal gap. The people that won were really basically a cash offer. And so even though we waived financing and everything, that cash offer could close in 7 days. So for example, this home was listed in the mid 6s and it went out at $825. Wow. So about a 27% increase over list price. And I think there were more than a dozen offers on that. Yeah. So small, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Wow. So it doesn't fit, but every
location.
But it's about the location. Yeah. And just, charming and vintage. I love vintage. I've sold a lot of 100-plus-year-old houses. It's quite fun. Yeah. So,
and the appraisal gap is a real thing. When you're the first 2-bedroom, 1 bath to sell at those kinds of numbers, it's not the seller's fault either, right? They're not going to necessarily leave $100,000 on the table,
right?
But they have to weigh: which buyer is most likely to get to closing and get to the closing table,
right?
And so that's again where the skill comes in, and everyone has to make the decision that's best for them. But that paints the great picture why it's so hard for buyers.
It is
right now.
Yeah, exactly. So now we've seen a little glimpse inside what it takes to be a buyer. How about the seller? What does the seller do right now?
Yeah, so the seller, it's interesting because I would say let's back up. So when I'm sitting down and talking to a new seller, the first and foremost is always what's important to the seller. So, there's going to be a market range and we'll talk about numbers. But what I find in my business a lot of times, it's when do you want to move? If you move, do you have another place to go? What's your, how does the end scenario look for you? And so oftentimes we work backwards. So sometimes it's, let's take advantage of this market and we want to see some speed and let's get it listed right away and take advantage of all the buyers that are out there right now. Sometimes we take a step back and say, your home is great, but let's put a little money, effort, time into it and update it and have it really capture the move-in ready buyer. There's such a high premium for homes that are updated, clean, move-in ready, that buyers will pay a premium significantly over any investment. And I have a couple of programs that are great because my sellers can do those updates without having to pay for any costs until closing. So So we kind of go those two paths. So I've had both recently. I had an estate sale that we did nothing except cleaning. And we've talked in past conversations about cleaning makes all the difference. So, having it professionally cleaned, some pressure washing, and then it was just a blank 1960s canvas for someone to come in and decide what they want to do with. And then we've gone other routes of your pre-renovation is, $425,000. We get a bid, we put $80,000 into a house and listed and sold for, they ended up netting like $175,000 more than if they had done nothing in the first place. So, we take those two paths, and then it's about presenting it to the public with professional photography, with your 3D tours, with your video tours, and then creating an offer review date so all buyers can come tour the house, make their best offers, get their pre-approvals in right, all done, and have the option of laying out, okay, seller, which is the best offer for you?
Right.
And that's where you see that I would say even when offers are written and waiving financing contingencies, it's less about what the seller wants or needs. Sometimes that's true because time or there are other considerations. Oftentimes it's the buyers are literally competing against each other in the most creative terms that they need to and the skill of the agent. So sometimes we get great priced offers with very all over the place terms. Sometimes you get great terms with not great prices. And then sometimes what you see is just literally buyers and agents making up new things like, releasing earnest money. For my recent transaction I had, the buyer had written in that they would literally give an additional, I think it was $5,000 just for accepting the offer above the escalation clause. So it was just a signing bonus. They weren't the top offer, but I thought, well, that's a new creative one. So buyers are out there getting really creative. And then the sellers get this buffet to choose from.
Right.
And then get to weigh the contingencies and negotiate what they like out of the offer. And sometimes you go back to the top couple of offers and have them strengthen the offers or shore things up a little bit. And
it's a whole different world from back in the Great Recession when the sellers were giving cars and other things to go with their house. And now,
please come show my house as a listing agent, So
what about the seller that, time, is of the essence to them. And they need to get the most money because they are retiring, but they want to move into like a very expensive assisted living place, right? And now we've seen those costs go up as well.
Oh yeah,
$8,000 to $10,000 a month for a very, reputable. Yeah. So how would you? But they need, the money really within like the next 30 to 45 days. Like, how would you advise them to proceed?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question because I think right now, and just what we have to rely on is past trends. That's all we have, right? Yeah. Because we like to predict the future, but we never know.
We're bad at
it. Yeah. There's things like, if anyone was a betting person, who would have said a pandemic would have created the hottest real estate market we've seen in 20 years, right?
Right.
Or ever, maybe even is a better way to say that. So I think for that kind of seller, I think it would be speed to market. I think that what we know right now is getting the home on the market. So clean, prepped, doing what you needed to do, whether they're living there or they had a place temporarily to go. We know there is an abundance of buyers. Interest rates, even though they're going up a tick, they're not significant. They're not to the point that it's pushing people out of affordability, whatever affordability means anymore, right? It's not bumping people out of being able to buy. A lot of the buyers have very deep pockets to rely on, whether those are stock options or they're just high paid tech workers or whatnot. And I would say, let's get it ready. Let's get it clean and simplified, and get it on the market. Because all we know is right now, we are in a fantastic seller's market.
Right. I agree. Yeah. It is. It's fascinating, but definitely the hottest that I've seen. And the seller's market we've been in, I was looking at it the other day. We're over 10 years in this market. It just seems like every year, it changes. We never know what the year brings, but this year is again just big old surprise.
Yeah. And it really feels like in the last 45 days, as brisk and busy and competitive as it was for buyers, I feel like something was unleashed in January. And looking back and looking at the stats, it's probably like because we had 64 houses to sell. Yes. That was it.
Right.
This renewed extra frenzy where things were steadily going up. I feel like even in the last 30 days and looking at pendings and doing, writing offers right now in this market and also having some listings coming up, I'm like, it's going to sell for what? And it just took this huge leap.
Right. I agree.
In a very short time. So as we get more inventory, I think that my prediction is just, again, inventory will solve this, but we're not going to build our way out of it. So it really means more listings coming on, just single family, or condo listings. So if you're ready to list your home, call us.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, I think that is, there's so much more, to discuss on buyers or sellers. And so we love to talk about it. We could talk probably all day and all night because there's just so many details to go over. But we thought it'd be fun to talk about some tips and trends that we're seeing in the market. And especially because 2022 is bringing in, just again, some new programs for buyers. Sellers are, seeing different, results as a result of the different things that are coming in. And so one of the elements that we've been seeing actually as a trend across the nation is because of the working from home has become somewhat normal. And I know when I've been out with buyers, we look at a house and we look where that Zoom space is, if there isn't one developed, right? Yep. And so this new trend, which is actually kind of a fabulous thing if a seller has it in a home, is a Zoom room. And a Zoom room is just a space that's optimized aesthetically, for you to put yourself in when you're doing your Zoom calls. It takes the place of the wacky, backgrounds that we've had with oceans and palm trees and, whatever, swimming pools or whatever behind us. And now people, because the work from home has become, very normal, people want to see people in their real environments.
Yeah, I think it's super fun. I've seen just spaces carved out. And really, I think what the shift is that we all need this big office space where now you have probably one or two people working from home. And then you also have, if not full-time, maybe part-time children who need space to Zoom as well. And we're not going to have 5 rooms dedicated to this. Like gone is kind of the day of like, I need this whole big office. But just these little corner niches. I also have seen standalone pods, I'll say, with doors on them that you can buy these prefab rooms. And maybe you'd put it in like a larger bonus room. But it gives more of a soundproof environment. They're not much bigger than anything that we're showing here. So if you don't have a corner, you can just buy a corner, stick it on a wall, and I don't know, they're about 3-4 feet wide and 5 feet long.
I've seen them in closets. People design closets. The part I love about it is I love when people have books behind them as part of their Zoom room, because I love to peek at like what those titles are. Like, would I like them? Do they read similar books to me? But anyway, I love the bookshelf idea because there's just something very attractive, academic about having bookshelves. And as you can see from these examples that, most everything has some type of book in it.
Yeah.
So,
and the reality is, I don't know about you, a significant amount of my work is actually done on my laptop, on my couch, probably with a cat next to me. So like these are just great when I need to go and step away and have a private conversation or not have 2 conversations in the same room with my husband talking, right? You can just step away, have this little space. And again, it's not costing you huge amounts of square footage.
Right.
And when you're not using it, those are perfectly functional storage areas, you know, right? You have your bookshelf, you have your games, whatever. You know,
yep.
whatever you want to
Absolutely.
decorate it with.
So I see it as a selling feature, especially with the millennials, you know, that are very hot in the market. They want that space. And so they are looking for, you know, where would they, you know, be able to have a attractive space to communicate with their coworkers.
Yeah, I also, when I stage a listing, I used to always just make sure I had one office space or workspace set up, and I really gravitated to at least two. And even if it's just a wall that you can put, you know, a skinny desk and a chair,
right.
And maybe a pretty picture bookcase, like you said. It doesn't have to be a big space, but just carve out these more intimate spaces, because people need to picture when my whole family is working from home, schooling from home, because I don't think that trend is going. I find it hard to imagine that in the near future,
right,
that the American workforce is going to be just like, let's go back to the office full time. I'm in.
Yes.
Right? I think it's going to be employers negotiating with employees and bribing employees to come back and make it worth their time for health, safety, time, the amount of time people are saving in their days not commuting. Right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot that goes into like why would I want to go back to the office full time?
Right. And so most of the people, because when we look far away, I make sure I said, are you sure you do not have to come in? And so the part that I'm hearing now is most of the people that commute into the city are saying that 2 days a week is what they're expecting, that they'll be required to come in, attend meetings, work with their team, strategize, and collaborate in person. And so that makes a lot more sense than for them, you know, to be able to have these great spaces and, you know, that type of thing.
So look more for that trend coming soon. And you may not have realized that that's kind of how people are setting up their houses, but start looking when you look at listing pictures, how many workspaces. And that's what I hear from my buyers too, is, you know, well, where would I put a desk? Where can my kids do school?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Fun new one.
Yeah, totally. So, okay. Well, trying to think of what the trends are in a year ahead. So Zoom Room is a trend. And then another thing that I think I started to see, especially last year, that the pandemic, you know, is hopefully just winding its way on down, is just talking and working with a lot of sellers on downsizing. Yeah. And so I thought it was just a good topic because I do kind of predict that 2022 is a great year for people to downsize. So could it be time to downsize your house? The thought of it is probably pretty frightening to most people. But I think once you've identified your goals and then put a plan in place and maybe hired some experts around you, and such as a professional organizer, a financial planner, a tax consultant, and a real estate broker, you can come up with a timeline and prepare to get your home ready and then figure out what your plan is. So I thought I have 3 key things that I wanted to help people get out of the starting gate. And there are a lot more steps, but I feel these 3 are pretty big steps that should help get you started. So first is identify your goal. Why are you downsizing? Are you downsizing like for just financial reasons to get the most out of your house, to either buy, or perhaps you want to rent, or perhaps you want to travel? Do you want to reclaim time? So basically reclaiming time means you want less home maintenance. Maybe you don't want a 2,000 or 4,000 square foot home to take care of. You maybe want something simpler like a condo or a townhome that really the maintenance is all done for you. Or do you want mobility? And again, this is where a condo or townhome would be super helpful because you can just lock the door and travel to your heart's content and then come back. Or are you looking for a sense of community? Do you want to be close to the action, like living in the city, or closer to people maybe around your same age? Or do you just want ease of living, where you're in a 2 or 3 story house with lots of stairs and lots of square footage to clean? Do you want something smaller, or a rambler just on one level in case you're worried about your knees or your hips going up and down the stairs as we start to age. And I don't always mean older people. This can happen to people in their 40s and 50s, right? So to know your goal is key, as this helps the people that you bring into your fold help you assess like what your transition is going to look like. Okay, the second is, once you know your goal, then prepare for your timeline and your plan. And know your numbers, your costs, your budget, and your desired move date. And this would be the stage for sure that you want to have the experts around you. You may want to hire a professional organizer or estate salesperson because they can help you sort through your things, figure out how to navigate the waters of downsizing. And then your real estate broker is key because they can help give you, your numbers. They can help you develop your budget and your costs and so forth for your move. Your financial planner or tax advisor can also be helpful because you want to make sure that you set enough money aside to pay any capital gains taxes you might have, and that it doesn't impact any other part of your income that you currently have coming in. And then once you have your experts on board, then all these experts can help you along the way, just so that the process never gets overwhelming, because you're going to have a lot of questions. That's why people who have helped and been around hundreds of people can help keep you moving forward. And once you know your desired move date and your tax consequences, it kind of just sets the whole plan in motion. And then once you have all that kind of under your belt, then it's time to just take inventory and sort, sell, donate, and work with your realtor on home improvements or minor home repairs that might need to be done. One room at a time, and if using professionals, they can assist with this as well. And I have a really hot tip because I've helped a couple people downsize last year, and one really key thing is if you can digitize your papers, such as your financial papers, your wills, whatever is important to you, digitize that, and also photos. Because then photos can be shared with other family or friends, and you have them all in a secure place. I've worked with people where we have hundreds or thousands of photos in boxes, and sometimes when people move, they don't want to take them with them. So digitizing them can just make a simple, easy way to transport that. So I hope you find those couple steps really helpful. And if you want more information, reach out, and I would love to help get you on the path and get a plan in place for you. So
Kim, that was great info. I think that that's super helpful for people to start thinking about the process like you mentioned. And in my experience, people underestimate the time and the emotion involved when they try to do it on their own.
I think so. And it becomes very overwhelming. I know last year I, did two that were somewhat quick, and thankfully we're able to bring in some experts. One was done in about 2.5 weeks, and kind of removing things from the house was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then the other one was just a little over a month. So that's a little abnormal.
Yeah.
I think typically, if we could have at least 2 months, because again, it's stressful for the seller.
Yes.
And that's where my role is, I will always want to make it as stress-free as possible. And so that's where, the people that we work with, estate people, organizers and such, are also just, like us, they just care about the, the psyche and the emotional part of the seller.
I think it's so important and not to underestimate and to carve out that time to allow yourself. And this is the interesting dynamic sometimes of family wanting to help, but just wanting to get to the end product. But the person moving really needs to be given that emotional space to make those decisions, not to clean out a room and throw things out if they haven't said so. And it's just a lot. It's just a lot. So I know we both do quite a bit with seniors. So those were all really, really good tips. And we can help share our vendors. You're not in this alone. Know that your real estate broker who works with you can help find the best person to work with you for your situation too, because maybe it's an estate and the person has already moved, or maybe they're still living in the property and need a different kind of process to help that transition.
Right. And it's super fun to help them just because, we're organizers, right?
We love that
so
stuff.
we love plans.
And I love, sorry to interrupt, and I love helping people not have to reinvent the wheel and go through what they don't have to go through, right? Because it's hard enough to leave your house of 50 years, right? So the more that we can take that weight off of them, but we can't solve every problem, but we can certainly help create that process that it's as easy as it can be.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you see for this year? What are your big predictions?
I know it's going to be an interesting year, right? Some of the things I predicted in January are already gone. I mean,
we need to reassess.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Well, I think that the forecast, so this is what I'm talking to my clients about. So whether you're a buyer or a seller, I think that the question about when is the best time to sell a home is when that person is ready. So what I mean by that is, the financials for a buyer needs to be in order. We need to get you connected to a good lender. We need to understand your goals, your needs. And then for a seller, the same thing. There's no way to perfectly time the market on either way. For a buyer, if you say, when's the best time to buy? I would have said a year ago or 2 years ago. So we can only look forward. We can only look in the future. So the things that I am watching closely and to see how it's going to affect buyers and sellers will be what's continuing to happen with our inventory levels. How many homes are for sale in a given market? So I watch that pretty much weekly and look back. Is it, are we having more homes for sale, less homes for sale? So watch that very carefully. Watching prices, obviously. Right now, they're just on the rise, but if inventory levels change, that could change. I don't predict it to change much. I think we're going to be an upward trajectory on prices as well. Good or bad, I guess it depends on which side of the fence you're on, if you're a buyer or seller. Watching the stock market, I think the stock market and interest rate changes are two things that we know are going to be volatile this year. There are other world events and things that we just can't predict, so we're going to leave those out of it because no one has that crystal ball. But looking at the stock market, I actually predict that the volatility in the stock market will impact the real estate market more because so much of our buyers' wealth is coming and their funds are coming from stock options, just the stock market. Having the liquidity to buy homes is coming from the stock market. So as that changes, favorably or not favorably, we will see impacts. I think that's going to be greater than even interest rate changes. We're still at historic lows for interest rate changes. We're bumping into the fours in some cases. I think it would still take a big interest rate jump, like more than 1%, and I don't think we're going to see that. But as the Fed decides what to do with inflation, we could still see that moving up through 2022. So those are kind of my broad strokes of what to watch for. And if you're a buyer, what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate what you need. We're going to get creative. We're going to look for off-market deals. We're going to look for other financing options that maybe aren't traditional. Kim mentioned there's some new financing tools that we'll be excited to share in the future that may help buyers be more competitive against cash offers, for example. And then I know as an agent, what I'm doing with my buyers is I'm not waiting for inventory to just come on the market. I'm actually going out, prospecting, marketing, trying to find off-market deals, doing a lot of marketing around that as part of a Dream Home Finder program, and finding the opportunity for those buyers, even if it's not a listing that comes on the market and you're competing with 12 people. So for this year, I think it's going to be about getting creative, hanging in there, not giving up, and helping buyers get the homes that they want to get, not losing out on market share. Because if you gave up last year, you're now re-entering as a buyer, and it's going to cost you 20 or 30% more for the same home as it did last year. So we're going to keep going, and so those are kind of my predictions for this year.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I mean, I totally agree. And the buyer, right, we constantly are reevaluating or re-strategizing because every buyer's scenario is very unique and individual.
Yeah.
And just figuring out, again, like what neighborhood are they looking? You know, do they need to branch out from there?
Yeah.
What's our competition? You know, one strategy for some of the first-time buyers is they just could not compete in single-family homes. And so we started looking at townhomes. And townhomes, there's some pretty nice townhomes. So,
some that live really like single family, that there's not a big difference between.
Yeah, so that is really kind of a hot little secret. I think townhomes, you know, by mid-year are going to start to go crazy again.
Yes.
So, I mean, right now there's some new construction that you can get in without writing for crazy amounts over. You know, if you like those pockets where they are, but I think those are going to get a little hotter here as the year goes on too.
No, that's a great tip. And it's all just about shifting and sometimes changing gears.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's part of how we can help our clients navigate the market.
Yep. Yep. Sounds good.
Wonderful. Well, it's off and running already.
Yep.
Can you believe it?
Yes. Looking forward to, you know, keep everything going and
that's right.
Finding new ways to make things better for sellers and buyers. So
real estate is never boring.
No. So. Never the same. No. Never boring.
Well, great. Well, it's been great to be back for another episode. And until next time.
Yeah. Awesome. Great to catch up.